Did you know that trees can talk to each other? What if they could speak to humans? What would they say? And how would we live differently if we knew how to listen? I'm Marko, it's Earth Day, we're all in quarantine, and this is the Marko Book Club. And this month, we're exploring these questions and more in the book, The Overstory by Richard Powell. Over the last few weeks, I've had a lot of requests on what to read during quarantine. And although I picked this book back in January, this has been more and more relevant as the quarantine has forced us all to look more closely and critically at our relationship with the planet. Escapism, this book is not, but if you want a compelling read that will make you think more critically about the world and humanity's relationship to nature, I highly recommend The Overstory, and here are 3 reasons why. Number 1, it's the world's first eco-epic. If anything, The Overstory is unique. I mean, in what other book can the trees actually speak to humans? Okay, Lord of the Rings fans, of course there are the Ents, but this is not a fantasy novel. It's a realist novel, maybe magical realism, and that's what makes this book so unique. Despite being fictional, it often reads like nonfiction, but in the best way possible. It's not boring. It slips back and forth between the engaging stories of the main characters and illuminating facts about the forests and their importance on the ecological health of our planet. It's been described as an epic because there are 9 main characters, each of them tied to a specific type of tree, and their stories going back multiple generations, in one case 5 generations of a single family. Time is expressed less in human terms, but in the lifespan of trees, many of which in the old-growth forest stretch back thousands of years, to whom a single human life is just a blip, a miniature ring in a very, very wide trunk. The book is organized into 4 parts, each of which corresponds to a part of a tree, the roots, the trunk, the crown, and the seeds, and each of which is basically an act, the setup, the main rising action, the climax, and the denouement. In part 1, The Roots, we are introduced to all the 9 characters. Each of them has a chapter dedicated to them and explains their relationship early in life to a specific type of tree, where their love for trees came from. In some, it's obvious and direct, and others more subtle. Some of the stories are really shocking and really engaging, while others took a little bit more time. It took me a little while to get into this book. So if you're stuck in part 1, I urge you to continue to get to part 2. That's when the pace picks up, the characters start intersecting, and they start having relationships that they didn't know they already had. This crossing of paths of the characters seems at first like fate, and then you realize it's actually a huge component of the novel. One of the main ideas of the novel is that trees, although they seem separate on the surface, are actually connected underground in many ways that humans can't even tell. There are all these connections that are invisible to the human eye, and the same thing is true for these characters. One of the characters is a scientist, Dr. Patricia Westford, and on page 132, she sums it up pretty well. Their lives have long been connected, deep underground. Their kinship will work like an unfolding book. The past always comes clearer in the future. So if you've read the book or if you're in the middle of it, tell me which of the characters do you relate to the most? Let me know in the comment section below. Reason number 2 to read The Overstory. It's entertaining and informative. I learned so much from reading The Overstory. The book really embodies the power of story in that it uses lies, fiction, to tell profound truths. The thematic question raised by the book goes right to the heart of the ecological movement. Is humanity's relationship to nature inherently toxic, or is there a way for us to change our path and save the planet? Here's a couple of facts that I learned about trees from this book. Number 1, trees can speak to each other. They are aware even if they don't have a brain, a mouth, and eyes, ears. For example, if there is a fungus on one tree, it will emit insecticides that will warn nearby trees of the danger coming. Trees connect underground so that when one tree gets sick, another can help heal it through its underground connection. Number 3, according to the book, of the old-growth forest in North America, which is thousands of years old, 97% has been chopped down and only 3% remains. What really makes the novel incredible is the power of the intellectual questions raised by the author Richard Powell. Essentially, is humanity doomed to destroy the planet, or can we fix the mess we've made? To pick back up with the same quote from Dr. Patricia Westford on page 133, Dr. Westerford closes her eyes. She is seen dieback across the west. Aspens are withering, grazed on by everything with hooves, cut off from rejuvenating fire. Whole groves are vanishing. Now she sees a forest spreading across these mountains since before humans left Africa, giving way to second homes. She sees it in one great glimpse of flashing gold, trees and humans at war over the land and water and atmosphere. And she can hear, louder than the quaking leaves, which side will lose by winning. Passages like these illuminate the essential problem that mankind is locked into an adversarial relationship with nature. While indigenous communities have had a more humble and symbiotic relationship with nature, the dominant paradigm of the West, and at the moment, the world, is one of subduing the wild and extracting as much value as we can from the natural world. Some people argue that this is something that goes back all the way to the agricultural revolution, where we picked certain plants that were once wild, started domesticating them, and then deemed them good, and anything that would threaten this crop or destroy it, such as weeds or animals that would kill our livestock, we deemed those bad, and we started selecting what we wanted and destroying what we didn't. In this worldview, trees are seen as something standing in the way of progress. It can bring no value apart from the timber, so they cut it down to make more cities or more farmland, as is happening on the edge of the Amazon rainforest as this video is being filmed. What this paradigm fails to appreciate is not just the value of the tangible aspects, like the trees, the animals, and the indigenous communities that are living in the forests, but the intangible effects of a forest on the ecosystem as a whole. In a world obsessed with doing and productivity, a forest seems to be the essence of just being. And although trees do a lot to filter the air and make life on Earth possible, we still don't seem to value the sake of a forest in and of itself. Now, while all this might seem like doom and gloom, trust me, the book does end on a tone of cautious optimism, which brings me to my third and final reason why you should read The Overstory. Number 3, it will change the way you interact with our planet. To quote the character Adam, a psychologist, "The best arguments in the world won't change a person's mind. To do that, you need a good story." This is a great story. The part of the story that really touched me happened about halfway through the book. You have two characters who have become friends, although they were recently strangers, and they've decided to go participate in an action to try to stop a logging company from cutting down one of the world's oldest redwood trees. These are trees that have been around since before Jesus walked the earth. The tree in question is one of the largest remaining trees on Earth, and they decide to climb up this tree into a little canopy in order to stop the logging company from cutting down the tree. The whole forest around this tree is being cut down. And this passage on page 264 happens the day after these new activists have just gone up to the tree and are sleeping in the canopy for the first time. They wake up the next day, and one of the characters says this: "Here and there, solo spires rise above the giant's chorus. They look like green thunderheads or rocket plumes. From below, the tallest neighbors read like mid-size incense cedars. Only now, 70 yards above the ground, can Nicholas gauge the true size of these few old ones, 5 times larger than the largest whale. Giants march down into the ravine the 3 of them climbed last night. In the middle distance, the forest broadens into denser, deeper blue. The land unfolds, ridge beyond ridge. His eyes adjust to the Baroque abundance. Forest of 5 different shades bathe in the mist, each one a biome to creatures still to be discovered. And every tree he looks on belongs to a Texas financier who has never seen a redwood, but means to gut them all to pay off the debt he took on to acquire them." Do our heroes succeed in saving this redwood tree? You will have to read the book yourself to find out. I've left a link down below to get the edition on Kindle, which I think would be the most tree-friendly way to read this book. However, if you do get the paperback book, rest assured, the first edition is printed on recycled paper, and in doing so has saved 637 trees or 200,000 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up, share with your friends, share with your book club back home. Maybe this would be a good pick for you guys to read in your own book clubs in real life. And subscribe to my channel, the Marko channel. I will be putting out content more regularly. I've been traveling a bunch over the last few months, but now I'm back home, so there will be more content coming out on that front very soon. If you want to read next month's book, you can head over to my Instagram account at Marko Ayling and keep your eyes peeled for a post announcing next month's read. We're gonna be doing something quite different. It's gonna be quite fun, and it'll be very appropriate for quarantine time. Okay, in the meantime, enjoy the book. As I always say, read widely, think deeply, and I'll see you next week. Happy Earth Day. Enjoy the Overstory.